right, welcome to another knot tying video. Today we are going to be going over the running bowline. I've made a previous video showing exactly how to tie a bowline. There's two different ways to tie it. I tie it away from you and towards you. Basically that's the loop going away from you and the loop towards you. One of the ways that I teach you how to tie the bowline is going to help you in application when you need to tie a running bowline. I'm going to show you here. I'll quickly show the two ways to tie the bowline, the one way that's going to help you, and then show you how the running bowline is tied. If you can tie a bowline, you can tie running bowline, and I'll kind of explain and show how a running bowline is used and what it could be used for. So let's hop right into it. All right, so just kind of want to show you, so the two ways that to tie the bowline. The one way that's going to really help you for tying a running bowline, and then the other way is just the other way to tie a bowline, right? This is the way I tie, and I call this is the bowline that you tie towards you because the loop is in front of you and it's coming towards you. So this is going to be the way to help you tie a running bowline. Now, that's the one way to tie it. The other way I call is tying away from you, and that's because the loop is going to be away from me. So it's where I tie away from me, the loop's going away from me. So those are kind of the two ways to tie it. Now, I don't really have a preference. It just depends on application and where I need to tie a bowline and how so. But for tying a running bowline, tying it towards you, like I showed you the first time, like this, is going to help you tie the running bowline. So let's hop into it. So the running bowline, also to mention, is good in circumstances and applications where your standing part of the line goes 3 miles down the road. So you can tie running bowline if you have a rope sling this big and you tie running bowline. Sure, you can just tie, I'll show you here, you can just tie a bowline like so. And then you can take your standing end, your other tail, and come up through the bowline, and then you're gonna have your running bowline. But you need to know how to tie it where you don't have a standing end tail 3 feet away where you can do what I just did. So let's pretend the standing line goes 2 miles down the road. You can't take the tail and come up through the bowline. So you gotta tie a running bowline. And now basically a running bowline is basically just a noose knot, where no matter how hard it gets applied to whatever you're binding around and binding an object. Now the knot doesn't bind, but I say it chokes around an object. Just basically, instead of having a sling with 2 eyes on it, you can use a rope sling and use this as, basically you can use it as a sling knot or a choker knot, or they call it a noose knot. I mean, it's easily, you can loosens it up very easily, right? And you can slide your knot where it needs to go and then tighten it back down. So I mean, essentially that's what the running bowline is for. But I want to show how it's tied when you don't have a standing line end come up through the bowline. So I always start with, I'll put my working end around the object I want to tie a noose, basically this noose knot around. So I'm going to take my working end tail and I come up around the bottom of my standing line, and then this is just gonna be sitting there, and then I'm gonna tie my bowline on your working end here. And this is where that first way I tied the bowline towards you is gonna help you when it comes to tying a running bowline, because now there's your running bowline. You can see how by tightening your standing end here, it really binds around whatever object you need to tie around. I'm gonna take my working end, and this is my standing end, the long part of the rope, and I put it underneath like so, and then I'm gonna tie a bowline back on itself, right? So that's where tying the one way of the bowline is gonna help you tie a bowline on a running bowline. So then you just tie a bowline, and then there you're gonna have, you can see how that's basically a knot for choking around an object. And that right there is your running bowline. Maybe you have a sling like this. You got 2 eyes on each end. You don't really technically need a running bowline, right? Then you can just tighten your, you use a sling, right? But sometimes you don't have a sling. You just use a piece of rope. Of course, depends on application. How heavy is the object you're pulling? Do you know? There's a lot of kind of circumstances that apply to it when you're rigging and whatnot. Sometimes, I will say for the most part, we just kind of wing it. I don't know what this rope is rated for, but I know it can take a lot of tension. Pulled a lot of things with it. That thing can withstand, it's got a lot of tensile strength. Of course, once you throw a knot in it, basically reduces it by 50%. But even if this thing was rated for 10,000 pounds, you put a bowline in it, now it's rated for 5,000 pounds, but still 5,000 pounds is a lot. All right. This will work. So, I found this I-beam just laying around. Let's pretend that this I-beam weighs 4,000 pounds and it's 20 feet long, or I don't even know what it would weigh or nothing. But sometimes you kind of want to use a choker knot or a noose knot. So I would just use a running bowline. Now, in this case, and take your standing part, I'm gonna toss it over there, or I'm gonna take my working end, I'm gonna put it around the standing part, and I'm just gonna tie my bowline right here. And now I have a nice noose knot that's gonna choke this object for rigging purposes, for picking it up with the crane. And now this knot isn't gonna slide around, but as soon as the tension comes off, I can move the knot where it needs to go and do as you please. So I'm gonna use a running bowline in this situation to pick up this I-beam versus just like a loop knot, just like a bowline. Because unless I have, you know, of course, a rigging sling, then I'm gonna just use a sling. These two are basically the same thing, right? Choker, choker. There's your running bowline, and then I can tie my standing end up on the hook of the crane or wherever I need to do, and it's gonna pick this object up. I'm strong enough. And you can see how it's not gonna slide at all. That's heavy. So there's your running bowline. Hopefully you can learn from that. Use the bowline, the king of knots. Tie running bowline, a regular bowline, a bowline on a bite. All 3 great knots. But for things like that, I like to use a running bowline, as you can see. It's a great choker knot, great noose knot. So hopefully you can learn from this video what a running bowline is, and maybe use it in your endeavors in life, or wherever you go, wherever you might need a choker knot and you only have a piece of rope, tie around a tree, whatever the case may be. There's lots of different applications you can use a running bowline in. And hopefully from this video you can learn and see how to use this knot and how to tie it. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.